under the one country, two system. Let's examine, first of all, the protection and development of Hong Kong, provided by one country, two systems. As we have witnessed since 1997, there are several crises occurring in Hong Kong. Due to the limit of time, we can only point out major one in this forum. Firstly, call our attention is the outbreak of financial crisis in 1998. The crisis of 1998 hit East Asia widely and badly, especially in Thailand, Indonesia, and Malaysia. Because this system is also attacked by the financial speculator like Soros, who initiated the attack of currency exchange market in the region. The crisis was caused by over-borrowing and over-expending out of one could afford for their development. The breaking point started when a speculation like Soros suddenly catch out the local currency, and that he bought earlier through the speculation of future index in stock market. The first victim was commercial banks, which showed most of the bad loan for developer from developer, and end up a huge, unbearable bad loan, and caused many banks corrupt, especially in Thailand, Malaysia, and Indonesia. But Hong Kong also was hit at this time. But lucky enough, our Prime Minister Zhu Yongji have decided to help Hong Kong to fight back the speculator like Soros. So under our nation protection, so the crisis not really hit Hong Kong, and not like Southeast Asia. So it's the first case in 1998. So China have decided to protect the financial center of Hong Kong. Okay, now we will await. Crises like 1998 are caused by zero-sum game, which is commonly used in the stock market. The market allows anyone to bet freely. This freedom is part of the hardcore value of capitalism. This betting game provides a channel of transferring wealth quickly. Therefore, it makes life like what Darwin have claimed that the best survival for the fittest. As a result of this practice of capitalism, Hong Kong have many losers, as we all know that. So the protection from the central government is a must and also valuable. Secondly, I point out that serious crisis of 2019 it proven the weakness of governing system in Hong Kong. This crisis lasted for more than half a year. Public order was completely damaged by rioters. Public transportation was widely damaged and handicapped. Even university campuses were occupied by rioters to produce weapons and to attack police. Police as an only force to protect Hong Kong, but very much insufficient to overcome the problem. So various government departments and responsible for maintaining their job of social order, such as Food and Environment Department, failed to clean up illegal posters. All these are the problem and the disorder happened in Hong Kong. So under these circumstances, the central government realized that the purpose of the riot is a campaign for Hong Kong independence and aim at to overthrow Communist Party. Since the Hong Kong government have failed to safeguard the national security, the central government have decided to enact a National Security Act, as well as to establish the National Security Department to help recovering public order in Hong Kong. With this legal tool, the riots were quickly overcome. The crisis of 2019 have proven a defect of Hong Kong governing system. In order to correct this defect and help to protect one country, two systems, the nation have done a good job. So this is another achievement. Thirdly, another defect of Hong Kong system happened to Legislative Council. The Council constantly interrupted by various unruly behavior, such as gerrymandering, fighting in the Council, and the worst is openly to declare independence of Hong Kong. Finally, it was attacked and handicapped by rioters in 2019, and ended up with several legislators involved in riots and are arrested and or deserted from Hong Kong. Pan Democratic Party decided to boycott Legislative Council. Due to the failure, the central government decided to reform Legislative Council. A new council is established in 2021, in which the direct elected number cut down to 20 from 35. 30 functional seats remain unchanged. A membership of 40 is elected by the 1,500 members of Electoral Committee, representing over 300 major social groups. The first election of the new system was successfully held in April 2022. Judging from the smooth operation, the new Legislative Council can be seen as a successful one. Actually, according to basic law, Article 68, a direct elected Legislative Council would further open up if political social order is permitted. After 23 years of practice, it has been proven and open for more direct elected number disorder getting worse. Apparently, it is an intense problem of direct election, very much due to the overwhelming number of foreigners in Hong Kong whose identity is their own country rather than China. Because of the problem of the self-identity, the new Legislative Council emphasized that council members ought to be elected by patriotic 爱国人士. Lastly, we would like to point out another more defected aspect in Hong Kong system. Due to the limit of time, we can only point out a few more examples without giving detailed explanation, such as the defect of food security caused by elimination of agriculture in Hong Kong, the defect of insufficiency health care, especially when a widespread illness in Hong Kong, such as the recent avoid health care for the elder generation have also badly neglected. Also failed to develop science and technology, resulted in a serious setback of advanced industrialization. The defect of housing development also caused a serious housing problem, such as subdivided houses for over 300,000 population. These are the defects. Some of them I point out. So the central government, the country, also come and help to overcome the problem. Because of one nation, two systems, one country, two systems, or protection of Hong Kong system is committed by central government. The protection shows the commitment of one country, two systems is sincere and firm. Other than protection and development of Hong Kong, the central government is also responsible to the protection and development of mainland. So, talking about the mainland, I would like to make it shorter, but in my report it's quite long. So I'd like to just simply orally, we should pay attention. One country, two systems, not only serve Hong Kong, also to serve mainland. Deng Xiaoping also have strongly emphasized one country, two systems, not only to help Hong Kong, to protect Hong Kong, to remain the prosperity and order, but also to help China to develop, especially the city. The city, Hong Kong is the metropolitan. It's established 150 years ago. So China, in Chinese history, we all know that the city are considered historically unhelpful and also damage to agriculture. So throughout the 2,000 years, the business, especially the business, was widely suppressed for the protection of agriculture. But it also after 1949 revolution, you know, the old city in China, formerly established mostly except for the United Kingdom within China, all are suspended. Business totally suspended for 30 years until 1979. When Deng Xiaoping visited Singapore, and he learned something, Singapore as a colony and can also establish a socialist country at the same time to preserve the capitalist system. Actually, this is a very unclear one nation system in Singapore, not been emphasized, but actually it's practiced in Singapore. So Deng Xiaoping learned this thing. After that, after his trip, he sent more than few thousand officers to Singapore to learn the experience of Singapore. So when he learned Singapore can be a good case, so in 1979, he decided to resume sovereignty of Hong Kong in 1997. So actually, when people never believed him, then he said, I not only will protect Hong Kong and then Hong Kong develop, I will also to build 100 Hong Kong in China. Well, because of this system, because of the rise of the city, today we see it, all China, the city, more than 100 Hong Kong will emerge, was built. So you can see that the influence and the example of Hong Kong as a positive value, that China actually very humble and learn from China. But when China built up the city, and you also avoid the defect of city, urban, especially high crime. But China avoid this problem. So there are many other problems that China to build up a socialist city rather than capitalist city. So the two different cities can be considered it emerged in human history. It's a really big achievement. Other than this city ideology to tolerate capitalism, also it's a big achievement in China. So I mentioned only roughly in these 2 points. I call your attention. Okay, thank you very much.
好的，非常感谢郑世炎先生的发言。Thank you very much, Mr. Zhang Cha-Yan. 谢谢，请入席就座。好的，下面我们有请香港大学政治与公共行政学系副教授严晓俊先生发言。And now, it's my pleasure to introduce Mr. Yan Xiaojun, Associate Professor of the Department of Politics and Public Administration of the University of Hong Kong. Welcome.
distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I'm very happy to be here at this forum, and I would like to thank the organizing parties for having me here today. Although I was not able to come in person in the morning, but I watched the morning sessions from my office online, which were fascinating. I appreciate it a lot. I would like to start from anniversary, the term anniversary. Anniversaries are moments for reflection. Anniversaries, people reflect on the past, recognizing the present, and looking ahead to the future. The celebration of the 25th founding day of the Hong Kong Special Administrative Region, therefore, necessitates reflection on the events taking place since 1997. Or perhaps we should trace history back to even 1842, when Imperial China was defeated in the Opium Wars by the British fleet. When people are reflecting on anniversaries of the Hong Kong SAR, we are asking questions such as what has been achieved since then, what has changed, and what has remained the same after 1997. Most importantly, what might the future look like for the 7.47 million people who live in this international metropolitan city on the South China Sea? History always tells grand stories in a nuanced manner. Hong Kong was hastily included in the concessions outlined in the peace treaty to which China was forced to enter in 1842, after British warships captured Nanking following a failed military counterstrike organized by the Qing court. This small coastal town, Hong Kong, thus became a point of shame in the collective memory of Chinese nationals around the world. It's a symbol of China's traumatic past, and also it's an unbearable century of humiliation. While studying in the United States in 1925, Wen Yiduo, who later became one of modern China's most prominent patriot poets, wrote sentimentally of Hong Kong. He personified Hong Kong as an orphaned child who was deprived of parental love and care. In the poem, Wen Yiduo wrote, "I'm like a yellow leopard who watches the night in front of the most majestic palace of China." The handover of Hong Kong to the Chinese government in 1997 was at once a remedy for this national trauma, a symbol of a rising China's independence and self-determination. And it's also a substantial step, as Professor Zheng just said, a substantial step towards the territorial unification of the Chinese nation. The peaceful cooperation, it's important that the peaceful cooperation between China and the United Kingdom in determining Hong Kong's future, post-1997 future, provides an example of the possibility of solving international disputes with complicated historical origins in a conflict-free manner. This diplomatic achievement is especially commendable as the negotiations between China and the United Kingdom occurred in the 1980s when Cold War tensions were high. During this period, the more familiar way to solve political disagreement in international affairs was that superpowers threatened each other with military might, and small countries were pressured to take side between the two so-called confrontational blocs. The new political arrangement reached in the Sino-British Joint Declaration in 1984, one country, two systems, has ensured both China's sovereignty over Hong Kong and the continuity of the capitalist system operating in this metropolitan city. parallel to the socialist system in mainland China. The continuity of the social, economic, cultural, and the legal systems of Hong Kong has helped the city to grow and flourish in the age of globalization. Hong Kong remains a global financial hub, and it plays a crucial role in facilitating the entry of global capital into the Chinese market. The resilience and strength of the post-1997 political arrangement for the city, one country, two systems, have been convincingly demonstrated through Hong Kong's successful handling of severe crises like the Asian financial crisis in 1998, the SARS pandemic in 2003, the social movements of 2014 and 2019 especially, and the ongoing battle against COVID-19. The opening decade of the 21st century has witnessed rapid and fundamental changes in international relations, particularly in regard to the Sino-US relationship. Both China and the United States face new challenges and pressures when dealing with each other. Frustration over the changing global political structure has come primarily from the American side due to the increased uncertainty about China's status as a potential competitor for global leadership. New measures and policies to contain China's influence have been enacted by the United States government. In Hong Kong, consecutive social movements from 2014 to 2019 included massive unrest and dramatic episodes of violence, which threatened the political order based on the Constitution of China and the basic law of the Hong Kong SAR. In response, the Central People's Government of China adopted a series of institutional measures in 2019 to safeguard national security, reform the existing electoral systems in Hong Kong, and stop the persistent cycle of local social movements. By ensuring that the Hong Kong SAR is governed by patriots, these measures have solidified Chinese sovereignty, as well as the central government's overall jurisdiction over Hong Kong. And it has led Hong Kong into a new era of order and prosperity. Ladies and gentlemen, Hong Kong is now pushing forward and tackling an array of challenges that threaten people's livelihood, from improving standards of living to facilitating greater upward mobility for our younger generation. Hong Kong is taking action to protect the social sectors most in need. Other priorities include improving the city's public health system and addressing poverty levels. While the city does face challenges to good governance so far, the present level of political certainty should allow the Hong Kong SAR government, under the leadership of the newly elected Chief Executive, Mr. Zhang Li, to improve the livelihoods of and ensure future prosperity for all who call Hong Kong home. Hong Kong's journey back home has been a long and tedious adventure, but the city has arrived back safely. The experiences of the last 25 years have shown that strong leadership, government capacity, and political certainty contribute greatly to the long-term stability and prosperity of the city and its people. As long as political certainty is maintained, Hong Kong will continue to develop efficiently, equitably, sustainably, and securely. We look much forward to this next phase in Hong Kong's journey. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. 严小俊。下面我们有请北京理工大学法学院教授、英国阿伯丁大学法学院前教授安东尼·卡蒂先生视频发言。Next, please welcome Mr. Anthony Carty, Professor of the School of Law of Beijing Institute of Technology and former Professor of University of Aberdeen School of Law, to give his video speech.
European academics and probably also American, but more especially European, are misrepresenting, largely by omission, the history of Hong Kong that led up to the national security law and the new electoral law in Hong Kong. And I believe that the reason they are doing this is to make it clear at the beginning of my presentation. The reason that they're doing this is that Europeans, and particularly obviously the British, are not facing up to the full implications of the colonial history and of racist imperialism of the 19th century. And I'm relying for this short argument on a single article published in May 2022, that's to say a few weeks ago, in the leading journal of Le Monde Diplomatique by a lady called Marie-Françoise Renard. And I think that this is basically very, very important to understand that the nature of this prejudice and the need for Chinese academics to systematically respond to it in a way which gets general public attention. So the media have a major role to play here, but they must be led by serious academic study. It's not enough simply that the Chinese Foreign Ministry objects reasonably enough that there should not be interference in the internal affairs of Hong Kong and that China knows best what to do in Hong Kong. I mean, I would agree with that, but that is not going to win them the argument. So basically, the article published by her is that how Miss Renard is how Peking has absorbed Hong Kong and abolished effectively the two systems principle. And the point I want to make here is not the really nasty rhetoric that she uses against China, but the elements which are missing from her historical dialogue, discourse. Now, which I find quite astonishing, is that she alleges that in 2014, with multiple demonstrations took place when Peking refused to fulfill the promise to have election of the chief executive by universal suffrage, a promise which began to develop in Beijing and in Hong Kong since 2007. What she doesn't mention is that the legislation introduced by the Hong Kong government to facilitate a universal suffrage was vetoed and voted down by the pan-democrats in the parliament, making it impossible to have universal suffrage. The decision to reject it came from the pan-democrats in the parliament, not from Beijing. They did not withdraw the possibility of universal suffrage. She says that in June 2020, when the national security law was introduced to facilitate this, there began arrests of a great number of defenders of democracy. So the broad description of people being arrested is that they are defenders of democracy. There is no attempt on the part of the article to examine the legal grounds that were made for the arrest of these so-called defenders of democracy, whereas Henry Lytton, an Englishman who is a resident in Hong Kong and who is a former retired judge of the Supreme Court of Hong Kong, the Court of Final Appeal, attests that these persons were arrested because they had broken laws, and that they were broken, and the arrest and the trial of these persons was perfectly correct in terms of the rule of law. But she doesn't need to study that, and she doesn't have to know about it. She refers to 2 million people who demonstrated peacefully in 2019 without mentioning that they were protesting against an extradition law, which the chief English national public prosecutor in Hong Kong, the English Grenville Cross, said that these 2 million demonstrators did not understand. This was an extradition law the chief executive wanted to introduce to cope with criminality of a personal, private nature between Hong Kongers and Taiwanese, had nothing to do with the government of China. But more seriously, she does not mention that beginning in July and going on until December 2019, there followed extreme and very widespread political violence destroying university campuses, public transport, commercial centers, and attempting to destroy the private residences of police and to attack the families of police. She basically doesn't make any attempt to represent what actually happened in 2019. And I can vouch that that is common practice of the Western press at the time. There is no attempt to engage with a level and a scale of violence that does give rise to the presumption that there must have been foreign logistic assistance. Otherwise, how could it have been possible? Finally, she objects that the national security law itself allows Chinese courts to intervene in the affairs of Hong Kong where Chinese national security is involved. And that is to say, wherever Hong Kongers appear to be in collusion with foreign powers. And she refers particularly to, in 2021, the closing down of the Apple Daily and the arrest of Jimmy Lai, whom I also had the privilege to know and to meet when I was in Hong Kong. But she doesn't mention that Jimmy Lai is televised in Washington, I think maybe even in the White House, discussing with Secretary of State Pompeo how United States can help the Democrats in Hong Kong. I mean, that may be an ambiguous piece of news information, but she doesn't discuss at all the fact that the pan-Democrat leaders from the founding of the party by Martin Lee have always considered the best strategy to put pressure on China is to bring in and call for the intervention of the Western powers. So this is really not serious, and not a serious academic description of what is happening, has been happening in Hong Kong. And but on the other hand, it is given full coverage in one of the most serious intellectual monthly newspapers in Europe, the Le Monde Diplomatique, which is translated into various different languages and which is certainly read by a very wide range of politicians and public figures. A total misrepresentation. And it is essential, in my view, that the Chinese Academy and other centers of learning like the Hong Kong and Macau research centers in Shenzhen and Beijing, that they really do need to systematically trail through and respond in detail to this misinformation. One can speculate about the reasons for the misinformation, but I mean, basically, the final point that one wants to make here is that, and I'm relying here on Henry Lytton, a English Supreme Court judge in Hong Kong, retired now, that it was the intention of Benny Lai and the Pan-Democrats, egged on by the Apple Daily, to elect for September 2020 representatives in the LegCo who would use the LegCo to undermine the executive and introduce chaos in Hong Kong. I mean, none of this is understood in the West, and none of the severe dilemmas that China has to face in trying to keep the Hong Kong project of one country, two systems going in spite of so much ill will is understood in the West. Of course, there are two sides to every story. And there is a pan-Democrat side as well. But I mean, I think that the side that I am highlighting here, in my definitely very considerable experience of Western media coverage of China, none of what I've been saying is considered at any serious level. These are just one example of a top quality Western media in May 2022. So it's actual. It's happening this week. This prejudice is continuing. I think it goes back to an inability of the Europeans to confront and to realize the nature of the 19th century history of relations with China. In my view, these have not changed. As a professor of the history of international law, I have supervised and researched the diplomatic archives on the history of the 19th century treatment of China by European powers, and I found it impossible to find any academic journal in Europe or America that is prepared to publish this stuff. There is simply a mental block, which is very, very serious. And so I do think there is a facade of intellectual culture in Europe, but behind that facade, there is quite a dark prejudice, which China needs to confront directly as part of its ambition to develop positive relations with Europe. So that is the little bit that my contribution that I want to make, based primarily on my own professional experience. So thank you very much for listening to me.
Anthony Carty 先生 ，Thank you very much, Mr. Anthony Carty. 那么下面呢，我们有请香港大学太空实验室总监昆汀·帕克先生发言。Next, please welcome Quentin A. Parker, Director of the Laboratory for Space Research of the University of Hong Kong. Welcome.
I was just struck by Professor Carty's remarks there. Ignorance and misinformation, the scaffold of malign politics and influence. And I think that's just so true, just listening to him then. Anyway, what a city, what a people, and what a system we have. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it's truly an honour and a privilege to have the opportunity, of course, to speak and share my views on a topic that I think is of profound significance, amazing generosity, and magnificent foresight. Now, I'm a mere immigrant to this incredible city, an Australian academic, an internationalist, a space scientist with a strong forensic eye, but with a growing love and appreciation for Hong Kong in all its hustle and bustle, pride, power, and performance. When I arrived in this special place just over 7 years ago, I was myself very proud to join a top 20 global university in the University of Hong Kong. But HKU is but one of several impressive sister universities that bless this city and enable us to ride high among all international university ranking systems. Our capacity, our talent, both internal and external, attracted to Hong Kong have enabled Hong Kong to be a tertiary education global powerhouse, punching way, way above its weight in comparison to population. Now, this is no fluke. It encapsulates, I believe, this city's beating intellectual, creative and entrepreneurial heart with a lifeblood of ideas, visions, dreams and motivations that flow out from the gates of academe into Hong Kong SAR, the GBA, and indeed the world. All of this growth and realisation of potential is set within a system that is without parallel in modern times. Indeed, much of Hong Kong's achievements and those of our universities have happened under this remarkable construction. The one country, two systems paradigm is a living principle, embodies for me a novel, pragmatic and stable path for the future. I remain in awe of its scope, ambition and yes, humanity. I do not believe any other colonised part of a territory would have been permitted to carry on in much the same way when a mother country regained a lost pearl. Most would likely have played hardball and perhaps gone all in from the inevitable moment of handover, but this was not the case for Hong Kong, because of the negotiated outcome, and indeed for Macau. Indeed, it is unprecedented in modern history as an enactment of pragmatic politics writ large on the grandest global canvas. It speaks of respect for people's way of life. It points to a realistic and sensible appreciation and understanding of preserving our unique value and developing it further. Indeed, the recent announcement that the one country, two systems constitutional approach to Hong Kong will continue beyond the original 50-year period has probably come as a pleasant surprise to many, but not to me. I anticipated this might happen, that might be on the cards, as a keen observer of geopolitics and for those that have an eye and a predilection for more long-term strategic thinking. To me, it makes perfect sense, and dovetails with what some more observant sinologists have said. The Americans, and I would add here the Europeans, plan ahead of just the next election cycle, whereas the Chinese plan long-term, in century terms even. I've often been dismayed by the short-termism exhibited by many countries, but I've always admired the French for often taking longer-term views of what is in their own national interests. And that's not just because my wife is French. This is compared to some other countries I could mention. Now, China excels in this strategy, and despite regular 5-year plans, a longer-term vision and approach for the country are always still evident. And it seems to me that patience, prudence, and pragmatism are a key part of the embodiment of China, and that these are the 3 things that speak volumes about intent and action going forward, as is clearly the case here for Hong Kong. I believe peace, harmony, and social stability are at the heart of this, an unchanged core philosophy for centuries in China. Now, this is regardless of whatever emperor or president, empire or republic is at the helm. Indeed, there are pervasive and respectful elements of Chinese culture that have endured for 5,000 years. Now, that really is long-term thinking. These emblematic societal indicators have, after an unsettled period, come back to the fore. Such cultural anchors, when combined with a flexible approach, have enabled China to emerge as the powerful middle kingdom it has always had the potential to become. This is with a unique combination of Eastern and Western thinking and pragmatic seizing of opportunity that places dim sum restaurants next to Starbucks and Gucci next to Shanghai Tong, in gleaming modern cities right across China. Now, these are connected together by the fastest and most extensive high-speed train network the world has ever seen, built mostly in the last 15 years. Indeed, we've got our own high-speed train station right here in West Kowloon, and I myself have used it many times, travelling in modern, sleek, and comfortable and very efficient with almost a plane-like feel inside. That's just one aspect of modern China. It is a China that boasts top international companies while simultaneously creating its own iconic brands. A China that has opened up to hosting global talent while at the same time sending some of its best and brightest overseas to the great universities and enterprises of the West. Hundreds of thousands of young Chinese venture forth to learn, exchange, and one hopes enrich upon return. Because it is here where friendships, cultural exchanges, and diverse opinions can build and foster trust for the better future of us all. This is what is sorely needed here, I believe. Trust. Trust from the people of Hong Kong in mainland intent towards us. An intent that I believe is actually full of opportunity as a key and integral part of the exciting and prosperous Greater Bay Area, and one that strongly beckons our young generation. An intent that I believe is inherently generous. I mean, we only have to look at the amazing support that's come across the border to help overcome the COVID-19 wave. And perhaps surprising to many, actually committed to protecting us and our way of life. This is just like other parts of China that are so full of cultural diversity and variety and richness. So only with trust can suspicions and fears that have had too much sway of late be replaced with hope and positive expectations. Now, to achieve this is not so much fine words that matter, but deeds, actions that can be seen, felt, and lived. Now, this is what will matter to the people of Hong Kong and why this announcement is so important. It is a promise of the future with no time limit. Now, today, Hong Kong is only halfway through to the foreseen integration into the Chinese mainland by 2047. Indeed, the 25th anniversary is up in July, and yet the 2047 date has been playing heavily on the minds of many people in Hong Kong. It is being weaponized by some to sow dismay, discord, and discontent. Only 25 years to go for some citizens seems too close for comfort, and so raises natural concerns about the unique way of life being snuffed out. This has fueled fear and foreboding. However, I believe this recent announcement of the longevity of this remarkable system has the potential to address these issues head-on and give the Hong Kong people the confidence and security they crave to plan long term. It will deliver trust that the locally enacted basic law will be upheld rigorously and the way of life, traditions and status protected robustly under law. This cannot be more important. For me, this could result in a tectonic shift in mainstream thinking as a rug gets pulled out from under the feet of all those negative arguments about the encroaching, awaiting future that is seen by some as unwelcoming and threatening. I believe Hong Kong is the most amazing city I have ever had the good fortune to live in. The people are industrious, ambitious, global and connected, but also recently worried and concerned about their society, the pandemic, and their futures. So this one new thing, an indefinite continuation of two systems under one country paradigm beyond 2047, can now, I think, provide some confidence about this future. Now, of course, there have been some teething problems and concerns about the national security law, but perhaps more with its zealous implementation than its actual intent. I believe it is there to provide protection, certainty, stability and security from the recent social unrest, and to actually preserve that very way of life so many hold dear, and without unfettered control or undue malign external influences. So, actions always speak louder than words. Nothing in this world is ever perfect, but with proper intent demonstrated, real trust can be built through unwavering adherence to the protection of the basic law, the mini-constitution of Hong Kong. Only then can the 2047 date be seen not as a threat, not something to be feared, but just as another year of progress in Hong Kong as a unique global city. A city that is strong, outward-looking and confident. A Hong Kong built on trust in the rule of law and our abilities and security under enduring respect for the two systems operating under one sovereign nation. Thank you.
谢谢昆汀先生的发言。Thank you very much, Mr. Quentin Parker. 刚才我们四位嘉宾已经用他们自己的一些观点，让我们了解了他们对于一国两制的看法，对于香港的看法。那么接下来呢，进入我们分论坛的环节。在这个环节中，各位嘉宾将分别从科技与文化、经济与发展两个角度来分享他们的观点。And just now we have heard our four guests shared their views on one country, two systems, the theme of today's conference. And next, we're going to move on to the sub-forum session. In this session, our guests will share their insights from the perspectives of technology and culture, and economy and development. 首先，我们进行科技与文化的分论坛环节。First of all, let us begin with the panel discussion, technology and culture. 第一位演讲嘉宾，我们有请的是2013年诺贝尔化学奖获得者，英国皇家化学学会荣誉会员，美国国家科学院院士，香港中文大学深圳杰出教授，阿里耶·瓦谢尔博士的视频发言。And first of all, it's my pleasure to welcome Aliye Washel, winner of the Nobel Prize for Chemistry in 2013, honorary member of the Royal Society of Chemistry, fellow of the United States National Academy of Sciences, and distinguished professor of the Chinese University of Hong Kong, Shenzhen, to give his video speech.
First, Hong Kong is not really, it's an actual center. It's not in the center, but it's in one of the sides. But it has a lot of traditional strengths in science and technology. It also has long history in this area as the primary place of science, older university. So I think Hong Kong could be a center. And I've been in all the sides of these centers, Hong Kong, Macau, Shenzhen, and other sides. And great proximity is an enormous advantage, especially if this bridge that I see in the picture has been completed. Then I think it has a very good chance to become a world conglomerate in the direction of science and technology. First of all, it already done so by having many new institutions and great collaboration between Hong Kong and other institutions like University of Hong Kong at Shenzhen. And again, I think that the great concentration of intellectual and scientific power must help and will help in development of such a center. I mean, if it will not be perturbed, it will keep growing as we saw in the past. I am associated with the Warshall Institute in Shenzhen, in University of Hong Kong at Shenzhen. Our direction has been in something looking to the future, in trying to use computers to promote health science and biology. And this direction is somewhat futuristic, but it's start to work. We are using computers to see how different diseases are progressing on the molecular level, trying to find drugs that will help to combat such diseases. This is done both by modeling the molecules that involve in the diseases and by bioinformatic approaches that try to learn from how such molecules work in one system to see how it works in another. Now, with regard to helping people life, fighting disease, fighting drug resistance or pandemic, it helps, especially it helps sick people. We do have some work, for example, on the COVID-19, where we predicted what mutations lead from one variant to another. This is one direction of this institute in helping health and health science. And now when the institute is start to be involved in the medical school, it might have better direct impact. But the main point is it bringing good people and pushing the field of using computers in biotechnology is an important direction, and we try to be leaders in this direction. I see on the motivation of the Chinese students in studying in the STEM direction, you are in a really promising direction. For example, I'm always very happy to have Chinese postdocs with me. So in terms of science, I think it's you are really in the right direction. Other education, I have been impressed from the Chinese University of Hong Kong in Shenzhen, from how they integrate English in the teaching. It's important to have connection to the wide world. And I think that the Great Bay Area has a very bright future, for example, considering the collaboration between nearby university like Chinese University of Hong Kong and Chinese University of Hong Kong at Shenzhen. So the basic education, I think, is doing very well, and having great university in close proximity is a very good recipe for further development. I think that you need manpower for it, which you do have. I see now more and more interest from Chinese people to build companies. Essentially, it's become very common. Like we met a Chinese first-year undergraduate who already want to form a company. So I think that the interest in pushing technology start in Hong Kong and other Chinese places quite early. And this will help to push technology, especially when you have the basic training from universities. So I think that in the directions of biotechnology, machine learning, and related directions, you just have to continue to progress in the way you have done, and there should be a bright future for you.
Thank you very much, Professor Aliyah Washoe. Next, 我们要邀请来自美国国家科学院外籍院士2021未来科学大奖的获得者，香港大学公共卫生学院病毒学讲座教授裴伟士先生发言。Now we are pleased to have Mr. Joseph Sriel Malik Pires, Foreign Associate of National Academy of Sciences, USA, recipient of the Future Science Prize China in 2021, Professor of Virology, School of Public Health, the University of Hong Kong, to deliver his speech. 有请。
Thank you. Thank you for this invitation to take part in this meeting. I'm Malik Pires from the University of Hong Kong. I've been in Hong Kong for the last 27 years, so before and after the initiation of the one country, two systems. I just want to continue on from where the previous speaker left off. I want to talk about how one country, two systems provides a great opportunity for biomedical research in the Greater Bay Area. And this is a view from Hong Kong. I think this century, the 21st century, is going to be a century where the biomedical sciences, robotics, artificial intelligence will shape our lives as well as our well-being and the economy. For example, if you look at what is now called personalized or precision medicine, if you look on the right-hand side, at the top you have the current medical paradigm, treatment paradigm, at least in Western medicine, where you have a disease, shall we say cancer of the intestine, you test out on large numbers of people, various treatments. They are shown to benefit the majority, and then we use it. However, what you find is that it is true that many people do benefit from this treatment, but some people do not. And in fact, in some people, it might be even harmful. So the future paradigm is to try to dissect out these diseases more precisely, to understand the genetic causes, the differences of these diseases, and target the treatment much more precisely. And what you see there is a patient who has intestinal cancer. on the left-hand side before treatment. And this particular patient has a particular genetic mutation which can be detected by sequencing. And a particular type of treatment is known to benefit this type of colon cancer, and you can see within 3 months and 6 months, essentially his cancer has disappeared. Now, this is a paper that came out just last week in the New England Journal. So this is an example of the dramatic change in treatment of cancer, heart disease, and many other diseases in the future. It is personalized and precision medicine. So other big changes that will take place will be some of the technologies that we have, such as stem cell technologies, bioengineering, digital medicine, and artificial intelligence. I think that was mentioned by the previous speaker. And if you look at the most recent edition of The Economist, you have a number of articles there which are very informative as to the revolution that artificial intelligence is going to provide, not just in medicine, but in our whole lives. So the Greater Bay Area really is well poised to exploit these opportunities. We are strong in biomedical sciences. Certainly Hong Kong is quite strong in the biomedical sciences. And in the Greater Bay Area, as you know, we have cutting-edge technologies in computer sciences and in robotics, as well as in artificial intelligence. And these will give rise to both commercialization and commercial opportunities, but also helping the welfare of our populations. Now, my own area is infectious disease. And over the last few decades, we have had many of these new emerging infectious diseases, whether it be AIDS, bird flu, SARS, all these things which have emerged completely out of the blue and have impacted human health, but also impacted our economies. So, for example, SARS in 2003 impacted the economies of the world globally to the order of 30 to 50 billion US dollars. But, of course, COVID-19, I don't have to tell you, the impact it has had, not just in the large numbers of people who have been sick and people who have died, but also on the impact of the economy. As I told you, Hong Kong is at the forefront of the biomedical sciences. And these are 2 WHO centers that we host at our university. And you will recognize Dr. Margaret Chan when she was Director General of the WHO when she visited us to open these 2 centers. We also have great collaborations with our counterparts in the Greater Bay Area and, of course, in China in general. So this is a collaboration agreement that we have with Professor Zhongnan San in Guangzhou at the State Key Lab of Respiratory Diseases. And on the other side, you see Professor George Gao, who is the Director General of the Chinese Center for Disease Control and Prevention. So these collaborations have been extremely important and continuing and ongoing. And in fact, it was these collaborations that allowed Hong Kong to play a major role when COVID-19 emerged. So, for example, some of the earliest research papers that came out, for example, working with the Guangdong Provincial CDC, we were able to very quickly tell the world, tell China, Hong Kong, and the world, that COVID-19 is very different to SARS in 2003. It's not going to be able to be controlled in the same way that SARS in 2003 was controlled. Unfortunately, many people did not get the message. Even our financial community and our investment advisor community, as far as March and April of 2020, they were still working on the model of SARS in 2003. And these are some other important publications that have come from Hong Kong, our own university, and other collaborators in mainland China. And in fact, you probably do not know, but there have been over 200,000 research papers that have come out, researching COVID-19, And these ones are the top 25 most heavily cited papers coming out of the collaboration between mainland China and Hong Kong. Now, something very important that has happened in the last few years has been this initiative from the current administration of Carrie Lam, launching what is called the InnoHealth, the Inno Hong Kong initiative at Science Park, where she provides funding for space and for setting up 28 or 29 companies, basically for the researchers in Hong Kong to set up companies to translate their basic research into commercial outcomes. And we ourselves are fortunate in having one of these companies, the Center for Immunology and Infection. And one of the things we are trying to do at this center is to try to understand why we are immunologically different. As you know, our immune systems are extremely important when we have infectious diseases like COVID, but the immune system is equally important in helping to keep control of things like cancer and also in diseases like heart disease. But the point is that although we may look similar, we are different in the way that our immune systems respond to different threats. And what you see there on the right-hand side is the antibody levels in response to a COVID vaccine. You can see that individuals vary very much. Some people responding very well, others responding not so well. So why is this? And these are all healthy people. So why is this? And there are a number of genetic, environmental, and other factors that determine this variability. And our research question is really to try to understand and define and identify these determinants so that in the short term, we can try to identify people who will respond well or poorly to vaccines, COVID vaccines, other vaccines, but in the long term, provide an immune report card, if you like, which will help this idea of precision medicine that I talked about before. Now, given all these opportunities, of course, there are some challenges that we face. Of course, the most important one is the restrictions in movement between Hong Kong and mainland. Before COVID-19, our laboratory, our group, we used to be traveling up and down to Guangzhou every week. Now, of course, we can't do that. Then there is also the restriction in moving biological materials. So, for example, in our collaboration with our colleagues in Guangzhou, our lab has certain expertise, their lab has certain expertise. So the same biological samples, whether it be from humans or animals or whatever, needs to be analyzed in Hong Kong as well as in Guangzhou. But it's very difficult to move these samples because of the restrictions that we have. Even though it's the one country, the two systems prevents this easy movement. And similarly, funding, research funding for collaborative research, whether we get it in Hong Kong, you can't share it across the border with mainland China, and funding from mainland China cannot cross into Hong Kong as well. And then, of course, there's the differences in the drug regulatory agencies, the FDA, if you like, and it'll be important also to have more opportunities for researchers on both sides to meet each other so that we know what our strengths and weaknesses are so that we can collaborate better with each other. Now, one of the big opportunities, I think, again, initiated by the current administration, is this Hong Kong Shenzhen Innovation and Technology Park. And the idea here is, and this is in the Lok Ma Chau Loop, this is a futuristic image of what it is. The buildings have already started for this plan. And the idea is that in this area, scientists from Hong Kong can work in this area, scientists from mainland China, the Greater Bay Area can work there, and we can all work in the same laboratories without any of these problems that I was talking about. So we are very thankful to the government for taking these initiatives, and I think these provide a huge opportunity for really putting science and technology on the map. It is already on the map in terms of research, but I think we can also put it on the map in terms of commercialization and providing one of the pillars for the Hong Kong economy going forward. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much. 非常感谢裴伟士教授。下面我们有请瑞士科学院院士、美国发明科学院院士、中国科学院深圳先进技术研究院计算机辅助药物设计研究中心首席科学家霍斯特·亚瑟·凡格先生视频发言。And next, let us welcome Mr. Horst Arthur Vongel, academician of the Swiss Academy of Sciences, Fellow of the National Academy of Inventors, and Chief Scientist of the Computer-Aided Drug Design Research Center of the Shenzhen Institute of Advanced Technology Chinese Academy of Sciences, to deliver his video speech.
Under the umbrella of one country and two systems, Hong Kong can take a twofold advantage. On the one hand side, being again part of China, a strong, prosperous country who will soon be the world's largest economy. And on the other side, keeping and strengthening its international network as a financial and economic hub. This is underlined by the fact that China's firms choose Hong Kong as their platform for global operations. Although Hong Kong has suffered quite a lot from the COVID pandemic crisis, as did many centers worldwide, I'm convinced that this city will overcome these hurdles and take measures to foster its national and international economic development further. Concerning the ideal international science and technology innovation hub, there are two different levels to be considered, or three different levels to be considered. First, there has to be a substantial support for fundamental science, especially for long-term risky projects. That includes that the research institutes have to install state-of-the-art technologies, attract the best young scientists with long-term contracts and support them with generous endowment, enabling them to perform long-term risky projects. Under such conditions, it will be possible to attract the best Chinese and the best international talents. This is the key for reaching breakthrough discoveries which finally will pay back for the welfare of the whole society. Second, innovation in science and technology critically depends on international collaboration, on intensive exchange of ideas and technologies. This includes support of international research programs, common projects, as well as exchange of researchers and students. Third, to become an international science and technology innovation hub requires the hiring of the best personnel and collaborators on all levels, from administration, technicians, engineers to scientists. That means you have to invest a lot in the education of people ranging from the best schools to top universities. The governments in Hong Kong, in Shenzhen, and in the entire Greater Bay Area have recognized that all and are on the right track to transform the Greater Bay Area into an international science and technology innovation hub. But means for this transformation have to be intensified. On the other hand, living conditions must be pleasant and affordable. As a city with a long history of an English and Chinese-speaking population, Hong Kong could play a very leading role to attract international bright students and top scientists, fostering English-speaking international research environment which could influence the entire Greater Bay Area as a world-leading center of science and innovation, science and technology innovation. I think the Greater Bay Area is one of the most vibrant and dynamic regions in the world concerning development in science and technology, as well as in economy.
This allows the transfer of breakthrough findings into practical applications and products. We have here the chance to reach breakthrough innovations combining biotechnology, artificial intelligence-based computational biology, and big data-based IT for finding, for example, novel medicines to treat serious diseases. Concerning our scientific achievement in the last 2-3 years here, the ultimate goal of my research group here in Shenzhen at SIAT is to develop innovative drugs in cooperation with colleagues from academia and partners from industry. At SIAT, our research group combines novel computational methods with innovative biotechnologies to decrease dramatically the time and the cost for developing novel medicines as compared to presently used strategies in pharma industry. We use artificial intelligence methods to open totally new ways in drug discovery. Our competences in computational and biology and novel experimental biotechnologies place us into a leading position in drug development. In these fields, there are fast tracks to translate. In my opinion, there are very fast tracks to translate central fundamental findings in science into products for the general benefit of the society. I give you an example. We have founded in Shenzhen a very dynamic startup company called AlphaMole, which will play a central role in the development of novel medicines, realizing the fast transfer of our findings in fundamental science to products. The impact, for instance, of AlphaMole and other startup companies in the field ranges from the development of novel antibiotics to new drugs for fighting cancer, diabetes, and age-related diseases, to mention a few. So my suggestions for Hong Kong and for the development of life sciences in Hong Kong are the following. My message is as simple as it is challenging. Hong Kong should substantially support long-term research in fundamental science. Breakthrough findings result primarily from fundamental research and are the central sources for novel technologies and products. This not only requires substantial financial support, but also patience. Novel approaches are risky and need time to realize innovative findings. Therefore, it is equally important to take measures facilitating technology transfers. All that should be integrated within science and technology programs of the Greater Bay Area. The local government knows that and is already on the right track to realize that. But it is always good to remind them to foster these activities. I mean, Hong Kong is already a very international city, and that is a very big advantage compared to other cities in the Greater Bay Area. Hong Kong is an English-speaking city, and that is very important. English is an international language of science and technology. So in my opinion, therefore, already from this point of view, Hong Kong has a big advantage compared to the other cities in the Greater Bay Area. But on the other hand, Hong Kong is too small to do everything by itself. It has to collaborate with the other cities, with the Greater Bay Area. And there are many, at least on paper, many programs which should foster the collaboration between the different cities in science and technology.
好的，非常感谢霍斯特·亚瑟·凡格先生。Thank you, Mr. Horst Arthur van Gogh. 我们刚才结束了科技与发展的分论坛，那么下面呢，我们进行的是经济与发展分论坛。首先有请 CCG 全球化智库高级研究员、美国 ABC 电视台前副总裁哈维·佐丁先生视频发言。And now let us welcome Mr. Harvey Zodium, Senior Researcher of CCG, Center for China and Globalization, and former Vice President of American Broadcasting Company, to deliver his video speech.
I'm honored to be speaking to you virtually today from Vienna, Austria, about my personal experiences in mainland China and Hong Kong since 1988, when I first visited China and Hong Kong as a tourist. At the time, I was ABC TV Vice President and had been in the Carter administration when the U.S. and China established diplomatic relations in 1979. I have really warm memories of Deng Xiaoping visiting the White House and U.S. that January. Since then, and for most of this century, living in Beijing and traveling throughout China, I can truly say that, like the Judy Collins song of my youth, I've seen both sides now and have closely observed what one country, two systems has meant for Hong Kong, China, and the world since 1997. And what I see is indeed positive. As I've learned from a lifetime of observations, no political system is perfect, and some are less perfect than others. Hong Kong's return to China, where it had been for more than 2 millennia, except for the century of humiliation, is full of promise, most especially for the more than 7 million people of Hong Kong. The British, with their colonial mentality, truly thought they could continue to keep Hong Kong to themselves. Britain hadn't intended to return Hong Kong to China as legally required in 1997. They arrogantly thought that China's need for Western technology outweighed China's desire to restore Hong Kong to the motherland. So in the 48-episode 2014 TV series, Deng Xiaoping at History's Crossroads, I played British Prime Minister James Callaghan, who was Margaret Thatcher's predecessor. There, Britain's Hong Kong Governor General asked me if China would make the Brits give Hong Kong back. My character emphatically said no, because he was sure that China needed Britain's technical know-how much too much in order to escape from being impoverished, undeveloped, as it was in the 1970s. Of course, Callaghan was dead wrong, and the rest is history. And it's a good thing, too. UK democracy, like that in the US, isn't exactly having, to quote Winston Churchill in other contexts, their finest hour. Having lived in London, interacting with all levels of society, I believe Britain, like the US, was and is a class-conscious, racist society. The attitude was best seen in signs that read, "No dogs" or "Chinese allowed." Unsurprisingly, before and after 1997, reports circulated in the West that under one country, two system, Hong Kong would not only lose its status as Asia's financial bridge to the world, but with it, its enviable, vibrant economy. This was fake news, as you can see from this World Bank per capita GDP data for the first 20 years of this century, comparing the U.S. and Hong Kong's upward trajectory at the top to China's upward trajectory in the middle, and India, often compared to its neighbor China, flatlined at the bottom. Under one country, two systems, Hong Kong is also poised for continued growth as a prime world financial capital, alongside New York and London, in sectors ranging from banking to insurance, fundraising, and wealth management. In 2020, Hong Kong ranked second globally, both for IPO funds raised and for biotech listings. And it's the world's largest hub for RMB business outside mainland China, and the second largest private equity center in Asia. The best, I believe, is yet to come. Thanks to the leadership of the CPC, Hong Kong is now on the cusp of a great economic renaissance, unforeseen in 1997, especially from the Greater Bay Area project, that, as the saying goes, will lift all boats and bring common prosperity to the 72 million people of Hong Kong, Macau, and South China. It will create a $5.6 trillion economy by 2030, even larger than that of Germany. Hong Kong will become an ever stronger financial center, as well as a high-tech and innovation hub. Because of one country, two systems, never again will Hong Kong be known for family apartments as small as the area of a car park space to house a Rolls-Royce. A civilization's advanced status is reflected in its state of the arts. Months after its return to the motherland, Hong Kong established the West Kowloon Cultural District overlooking Victoria Harbor. Now, with the M+ Museum of Contemporary and International Art and the very soon-to-be-open Hong Kong Palace Museum, together with a vibrant cultural industry cluster and more planned cultural venues, Hong Kong has cemented itself as a leading capital of art and culture. Believe me, I yearn for the day that I can again set foot in dynamic Hong Kong and witness your great progress and rejuvenation. I look forward to again visiting world-famous Art Basel, Hong Kong, as I last did in 2017. I wish this conference to be as complete a success as is one country, two systems. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Harvey Zodim. 下面有请中国工商银行亚洲主席兼执行董事高敏女士发言。Next, please invite Mrs. Gao Ming, Chairman and Executive Director of Industrial and Commercial Bank of China, Asia.
So, distinguished guests, dear friends, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I'm really very happy to be here in this forum. So first of all, I would like to express my sincere thanks for the Bohemia magazine for giving me this great opportunity of sharing my thoughts on the International Financial Center of Hong Kong. Today, through this very successful forum, I think everybody has learned a lot of very valuable, important insights and perspective from the previous speakers. Now it's my turn. I thought I'm the last speaker, but I think thank you for Vincent. Yeah. But whatever. Since I'm the only one bank speaker from the banking industry, so I really feel quite honored. As you know, Hong Kong is very important financial center in the world. So in my following speech, I would like to look back on Hong Kong's tremendous economic and financial development and momentum over the past 2 decades. And I will also explore the outlook for Hong Kong's integration with national strategy and its continued unique function at the International Financial Center in the new era. In the past 25 years since handover, Hong Kong has weathered critical challenges including Asia financial crisis and global financial crisis. The Hong Kong economy has maintained resilient and steady growth, with its GDP increasing from 1.37 trillion Hong Kong dollars after its handover to the motherland to 2.87 Hong Kong dollars in 2021, with a compound annual growth rate 3.1%. The GDP per capita has risen by 70% from around $27,000 in 1997 to $49,000 in 2001. Hong Kong has been playing the role of a super connector, bridging the mainland China and the global markets. In 2021, there were 9,049 companies operating in Hong Kong, of which 2,080 from the mainland China. In the same year, Hong Kong recorded 4.9 trillion Hong Kong dollars in entrepreneurial trade, representing a threefold increase since 1997, of which around 60% with the mainland China. At the same time, the consecutive launches of Stock Connect, Bond Connect, the Wealth Management Connect have brought about a synergy with the mainland that helped create a unique path to the gradual opening up of the financial market while elevating Hong Kong's status as international financial hub in the process. At present, Hong Kong has 192 accredited banks and more than 160 insurance companies. It is also the world's largest offshore RMB hub, the world's fourth largest foreign exchange market, Asia's largest international asset management hub, and one of the most active derivative market in Asia. The Hong Kong Stock Exchange ranks one of the world's largest stock exchange in terms of market capitalization, with the highest number of IPOs in the world in 7 of the past 12 years. As we enter in the new era, China has pressed ahead the global trend and established a brand new development strategy we call dual currency, dual circulation. With the one country, two systems approach sees continuous optimization and improvement. This provides a unique opportunity for Hong Kong's economic transition and diversification. Next, I will share some of my thoughts and outlook and perspective on the development of Hong Kong's international financial center in terms of reinforcing traditional advantages and cultivating emerging strengths. First, the acceleration of regional integration and continued opening up of the mainland's economy form a solid foundation for Hong Kong to fortify its traditional competitive advantages as a financial center. The official launch of RCEP paves the way for the formation of the world's largest free trade area. Regional trade and investment based on complementary industrial cooperation will generate large demand for core financial services, such as financing, investment, asset management, and insurance, which will be a shot in the arm for the banking and insurance industry, as well as security market. The introduction of the RMB-denominated mechanism in interconnected areas, innovation development of the offshore RMB bond market, and the growth in demand and transactions in the derivative market will favor the formation of a more dynamic offshore RMB ecosystem and anchor Hong Kong at the status as the largest offshore RMB hub. Second, the vigorous growth of green economy on the national and regional level represents an opportunity for Hong Kong to develop new competitive advantages at the financial center with the acceleration of global warming and frequent recurrence of extreme weather conditions. The need for a transition to a low-carbon economy is more urgent than ever. With the Hong Kong's outstanding capacities in capital financing, supply in the service, and institutional creativity, coupled with its strategic intermediary role, Hong Kong is expected to continue to play a significant role in promoting green financial standards and green investment and financing, as well as in exploring the development potential of regional carbon trading markets. So in the morning session, we are quite happy to learn from the speech made by the Chief Executive, Carrie Lam. Hong Kong's green finance volume has accounted for 1/3 in the whole Asian market. So this really tremendous progress achievements made by Hong Kong in the past years. So we're really proud of such kind of success and achievements made by Hong Kong. Now come to my third point. Under the circumstances of increasing volatility in the global capital market, continued development of RMB internationalization, as well as the growing demand for cross-border assets in the mainland, the demand for commodities, derivatives, and other forms of trading will also surge, providing greater support for Hong Kong to become a leading risk management center and a commodity trading hub. My fourth point, as Hong Kong is very uniquely positioned to become a world-leading fintech hub. On the one hand, Hong Kong is equipped with great capacity of scientific research and well-developed communications and electronics industry. On the other hand, one of the 3 global innovation hubs of the Bank for International Settlement, where more than 600 fintech companies attracted. In the future, the development of Northern Metropolitan Area and the formation of the economic ecosystem of South Finance, North Innovation will further strengthen the combined resources advantages of finance plus technology in Hong Kong. In addition, the unique institutional environment of one country, 2 systems and 3 customer zones in the Greater Bay Area provides an exceptional pilot platform for the research and development of cross-border fintech products and innovation in regulatory mechanism. Over the course of Hong Kong's development as a financial center, Chinese bank has always played a significant role in more than 1 century. Now there are 33 Chinese banks in Hong Kong. They accounted for around 40% of the total assets in Hong Kong banking industry, significantly higher than around 10% right after the handover. As the flagship of overseas business of ICBC Group, and as one of 5 DSIB bank, DSIB, the short form for Domestic Systematically Important Bank in Hong Kong, ICBC Asia, where I work from, is committed to providing one-stop comprehensive financial services for international funds looking to invest in mainland China, as well as mainland enterprises looking to operate overseas. We have always been very active participants and advocates of the interconnection schemes between the 2 capital markets. So I want to close here by saying that I firmly believe with the fast integration of Hong Kong into national strategy, with the continued opening up of financial markets in the mainland China, RMB internationalization, and more interconnected schemes introduction, we have strong reason to believe that tomorrow the future of Hong Kong International Financial Center will be more prosperous and more steady. And the unique bridge function played by Hong Kong will be more important and will be strengthened. I think what is more important is we need all the people loving Hong Kong should make utmost efforts jointly to build the tomorrow of Hong Kong much stronger and better. So finally, wishing everybody safety and healthy. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
非常感谢高明女士的发言。Thank you very much, Mrs. Gao Ming. And last but not the least， 我们有请大紫荆勋衔瑞安集团主席罗康瑞先生发言。It's my pleasure to welcome Mr. Vincent Lo Hongsui, GBM, Chairman of Sheng'an Group, to give his speech.
Good afternoon. I believe my coming on time actually was causing a bit of concern for the organizers. I did not know that the program was moved forward. My previous speakers, they have all spoken a lot on the one country, two systems. So my topic today will be Hong Kong in the turbulent years ahead. The Russia-Ukraine crisis has sparked a surge in global energy and food prices, posing a major setback for the global economy. The COVID pandemic has continued to disrupt the world supply chain and has taken a heavy toll on the world economy. Inflation has resurfaced aggressively. And going forward, stagflation is looking more and more a likely scenario. Overpriced asset with rising interest rate, U.S. monetary tightening is making it tough for investors, as you can see in the last few days. The Sino-U.S. confrontation is not going to improve anytime soon. All these negatives are happening at the same time. It appears that the perfect storm is in the making that would disrupt the whole world, causing a major concern and correction in the financial markets. Hong Kong, of course, will also be impacted for sure. But fortunately, Hong Kong has regained stability after the introduction of the national security law, restoring confidence, particularly in the business sector for people like myself. We're now focused more on solving social and economic issues, but we need to be mindful of the possible disturbances that might happen again. Despite of all these headwinds, Hong Kong is in a strong position to develop and grow. I believe the mainland economy will have a stronger growth trajectory as compared with any other major economies in the world. We in Hong Kong are now better equipped and mindful of the benefits of participating into the growth and development of the mainland. The Greater Bay Area offers enormous opportunities for Hong Kong, particularly in the technology and innovation arena. The GBA's economy is about the same size as that of Canada and South Korea, with a land area of 56,000 square kilometers and a population of over 80 million. There will be tremendous opportunities for Hong Kong to participate into the future growth of this phenomenal region. The Belt and Road Initiative will be another major opportunity for Hong Kong if we can seize that golden opportunity of building ourselves into the commercial hub role for the Belt and Road projects. China will no doubt continue to lead and invest into the Belt and Road projects, but China cannot invest all on its own. Resources from all over the world will be required. The Belt and Road Initiative will be helping the developing countries to grow with better infrastructure and connectivity, creating new markets for all to exploit. This initiative, I believe, will become the most important international cooperation platform in the 21st century. And Hong Kong can play a big role in integrating and allocating resources from all over the world for the Belt and Road projects. That will further strengthen Hong Kong's international business finance center status. We could also consider how the renminbi can be used in the investment of the Belt and Road projects. I'm sure that will help greatly the internationalization of the renminbi. We need to consider carefully and expeditiously how we can lift the COVID quarantine restrictions as soon as possible, as this has already affected Hong Kong's role as an international business finance center. It will not be an easy task, but we will have to find a way to open up to the world, as most other countries have already lifted their restrictions. We need to open our borders in order that we can continue to interact with the world conveniently. Of course, at the same time, we have to find a way to comply with the mainland's requirement of zero COVID policy. If we can achieve this, it is making good use of the one country, two systems for Hong Kong. We may even become a pioneer for China in creating an arrangement that could protect the health of the population and open up to the visitors at the same time. Housing is a major concern for Hong Kong people. The new administration must find ways to expedite on the supply of land and housing. It is almost inhumane for an affluent society like Hong Kong to have so many families living under such poor and congested conditions and under such high and unaffordable prices. The Northern Metropolis Plan is an important initiative for Hong Kong to better connect with Shenzhen and hopefully to develop this new district where innovation and technology can excel and prosper. The Northern Metropolis cannot be just another new town in the new territories. Its master plans will need to be carefully designed and crafted in order that technology people, venture capitalists, business executives, professionals will be keen to live and work there. This is also a plan that could increase the housing supply for Hong Kong in the near term. We need to find ways to expedite on this development. The Chief Executive-elect, Mr. John Lee, has promised that he will work for results. This is a big welcome for Hong Kong, as we must cut away the bureaucracies and make things happen. Time is not a luxury we can afford. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vincent Lo Kang-sui. 女士们、先生们、各位嘉宾、各位领导，我们今天的论坛到此就接近尾声了。在25年前，接近25年前的今天，就在我们这里的不远处，香港国际会展中心5星红旗在这里升起，英国国旗在这里降下。转眼间就到了25周年回归的纪念日。我们怎么来回顾这过去的25年呢？我想每个人都有心中自己的感想。有人说是令人骄傲的，有人说是充满着挑战的，也有人说是非常令人难忘的。中国有句古话叫做“乘风破浪会有时，直挂云帆济沧海”。我想现在是时候了，是香港开启一国两制下半场的时候了。我们一人的掌声再次感谢我们各位嘉宾的精彩发言，谢谢你们 ，Thank you very much。最后，请允许我宣布，香港回归25周年紫荆文化国际论坛到此结束，谢谢大家 ，Thank you very much，Good luck。